1, 2, 3. The dies very well.
Is there?
I see Frank and I see Ellen. I see Sandra.
You're
Two
drinking.
others
Oh,
up there.
you need to drink something. Then.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are recording, so you may start when you wish.
We'll start right at 7 sharp.
Good job.
It is 7 o'clock and the meeting will come to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the City of Prospect, Kentucky City Council on November 16, 2020. The hour is 7 o'clock. And the first order of business on the agenda is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. The first set being the meeting on October 19th, 2020. And the second set being the special meeting on November 6th, 2020. Are there any proposed corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and they are approved. Next item is the mayor's report. I have several things to mention, just briefly. The first is that we have hired a new code enforcement officer. His name is Rick Wilson. He will work up to 99 hours a month, probably Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And Rick will be under the supervision of Police Chief Sherrard. And at this point, I would ask the chief to tell you more.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As the mayor said, that Rick Wilson is the new code enforcement officer. He began training this week. The thing that really struck me is he's extremely enthusiastic about the position. And before he got here, he went online, he pulled up all the code of ordinances, he began studying them. He actually has a really good grasp of them already. He actually has a background. He was a pipe fitter. He worked for the union in the office. He was an office holder there. And he was involved in construction, in HVAC systems and everything in that level of construction for, businesses were being built. And I guess you would say when like office buildings and things like that, they were large scale projects. So he understands that kind of stuff. He strikes me as somebody that's extremely organized. He's already talked about the way that he wants to set up spreadsheets and everything to keep everybody advised as to what he's doing. And so this is going to be light years different than what we've experienced here. Again, he's been preparing in advance. He will be under our supervision the police department, so we know, because we work sort of hand in glove anyway. Because if Mike was working on something during the day and they needed us to check on it later in the day, they would share information, but that was sort of intermittent at best. But this way, there will be a lot more accountability as to what we're doing in terms of code enforcement. And there's going to be a much better paper trail as to what's going on, because we've already discussed perhaps putting something on our a folder on the our interdepartment system here, that we will be able to keep up with what he's actually working on and be able to pull it up. Like when a permit is issued, we will know it. We will know the expiration on it. If somebody gets a dumpster permit, we'll know when the permit's supposed to go in, when it's supposed to go out. If an extension has been applied for, we never knew any of that before, but that's something that we want to do now. And he wants to be a part of. These were some of the suggestions that he had. So there's going to be a much better exchange of information, both from him and throughout city government. And I think that that's going to be much better. We'll keep track of his schedule. Again, as the mayor said, because he's part-time, by law, he has to work less than 100 hours. So we're probably going to set him up on 12 days a month, which would be 96 hours. And then we'll iron that out. But we'll keep his schedule, and then we'll make sure that the ladies at the front desk have that schedule. So if somebody happens to call during the day that he's not there, they'll be able to say, well, he's not here. He'll be in Wednesday. I'll give you his voicemail. And if it's something that is a more pressing matter, then that call would roll over to the police department. We would attempt to take care of that problem that day. And if it can't be, then we would make sure that Rick knows about it the next day that he's there, and we'd coordinate to get that problem taken care of. So we hope that this works a lot better than what we had before.
It sounds great. Where will he physically be located when he's
He'll
in this
physically be
building?
located at the same desk because we don't have that, but he will, we'll take care of his time sheet and everything like that. He's also going to keep like a daily log of what he's doing, the type of things that he's working on. If a complaint comes in, say that he's working on, a grass issue at such and such location, he'll keep like a daily log like our police officers do. And say that I worked on a grass complaint at such and such location. And also for the time being, he doesn't have the vehicle that Lesh had is not going to work. It's got a lot of mechanical issues, going to cost way too much money to fix. So until we can get that, he'll have to use his own vehicle and be reimbursed for whatever the ongoing state rate is until we can get that ironed out, in a month or two from now. So he'll keep track of all of his mileage and that kind of stuff, and we'll make sure that that's all maintained.
Are we going to be getting rid of that vehicle?
I'm sorry?
Are we getting rid of that vehicle that's out there? I saw it's got, less tire.
So we aired that tire up on a number of occasions, and so, but it needs all kinds of stuff. It needs brakes. It needs an air conditioner. It needs a minimum of $4,000 worth of work on a car that's not worth it.
I have a question you may be able to answer. On US 42, as you enter Hunting Creek, there's a lot of complaints. If you look to the right, there's down pole, down trees, fences, and over here for multiple locations. Do you know, is that on US 42? Is that on like the city?
That fence is on.
Well, from the fence to the street. Yeah. So who is in charge of cleaning up most of the stuff? I mean, there's been a light pole that's been down. It looks like it's cut up for 6 months.
The light pole, that's a part of a traffic accident. That'll be an insurance job.
Okay. I mean, it's just been down for 6 months. I don't know if it's on the city of Prospect, the city of Louisville, taking care of US 42, or the property owner. Do you know?
I would have to go and look at it. I think it's on the city of Prospect, but as a matter of fact, I just got letters from the insurance company, Morgan and Morgan. I just got a certified letter from them today over this that traffic accident, and we've had all kinds of open records requests as it relates to that, because it was somebody that was hauling a dumpster, of all things. We're talking about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, we got hit with that. Everybody's suing everybody as it relates to that rack.
Well,
even though it was pretty minor.
Talking to my neighbors, that's the biggest complaint I had when we were going around campaigning. stuff. It's just like, we just not clean this up. It's simple.
I know that and that's probably why it hadn't been paid yet. The insurance companies involved in that are all suing each other.
Okay.
Because neither one of them wants to take responsibility for it, even though it's really clear who is involved in that. I mean, on the accident, Unit 1 illegally passed
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah,
the guy in the oncoming lane because he didn't like the way that they were stopped
Right.
at the traffic light. I mean, it's clearly who was in violation. And but anyway, that's why it hasn't been paid for. But that insurance company would be who would do that. Now, whether or not that's something that the city would want to pay for now and get the money back later, I don't know.
Well, even if it's just,
Or when I call Morgan and tell them I don't have all the information.
there's a light pole, there's a lane, a light pole just on the ground, looks like it's all cut up. You just put it down.
There are two of
Two of them.
2 locations.
I'll go up there and look at it.
Okay.
I can check on the
So
status
he's
of it.
right. During the election, that was the largest thing that people asked us. When are they going to clean up the entrance to Hunting Creek?
You enter one of the largest subdivisions, and it looks terrible in comparison to all else.
I can check on that and see what the status is.
Yeah,
But
just look to the right as you.
it normally doesn't
There's a lot
take
of
that
it.
long to do anything, but that is heavily involved in litigation right now because neither one of the insurance companies want to take responsibility.
Wouldn't that, the replacement poles that went in, wouldn't LG&E or whoever, the telephone company, whoever the poles those are, wouldn't they have
Again, I'd have to look at the poll. Yeah, it could be.
an obligation of theirs to clean up after after they put in a new pole?
Yeah, but even LG&E seeks somebody else to pay doing it in advance generally, but we can check. I think we can probably.
Maintenance department probably take 5 minutes for the 2 guys or 3 guys to get out there.
To get
Pretty
the junk
cut
out.
up, yeah.
To get the junk out of the way.
Yeah, just pick it up.
Okay.
Can Rick have time to go out on his own and look for compliance issues and resolve things as he sees them?
There will be some time to do that. But this first week we're just getting trained up, and then for example, Mike Thomas took him around today to get him acclimated to the city, all the basically the boundary lines of the city, what's a prospect, what's not, because frequently you get calls from people that live outside the city wanting information. So he's trying to get everything ironed out as it relates to all that. And but yeah, when we were talking later this afternoon, we were talking about how to look and patrol at certain times and things like that. But until he gets a city vehicle, I don't know that there'll be a whole lot of patrolling, but it will be like, okay, today you go look in Sutherland, tomorrow go check out Hunting Creek and the estate section, and then another time go up here and get the woodlands and Bridgeport.
So I think it would be good if he could get all the areas once a month kind of thing.
Oh, it would be more often than once a month, I can assure you. It just won't be an everyday thing.
Just a housekeeping point, the newsletter that came out today still had Mr. Lash as a code enforcement officer.
They were, Ron was updating that today, as a matter of fact.
He sent it out, I read it just before I came here. And the phone numbers are still Mike Lash's phones. I assume that would be the same number.
Well, I hope everybody calls him and bothers him.
Okay.
Chief, thank you very much for that report. I also would like to thank the mayor for stepping up and filling in a very important void since Mike has left. So I want to thank the mayor for doing a great job keeping us going with code enforcement. And then the second thing I want to say is I find this hire seems to be very fitting. Excuse the pun. Pipe fitter, fitting, sorry.
Very punny.
And don't forget to tip your waitresses.
The only thing I was going to add, based on what Harold was saying before about the fence being down and all the trees that have fallen down, I'm an acquaintance with the guy who has done a lot of the tree removal along that property after like each storm and windstorm. And I do know that he had mentioned there is a plan that guy is slowly going through, because he has a tree, they repair the fence and then another tree falls on the fence. they repair the fence, the tree falls on the fence, and so they're trying to cut a lot of stuff back. So it may be, if someone can talk to that owner, he might have a very known plan. He might have to execute that, I'm not sure, but I think he does have a plan to work on it.
Sarah, what location are you talking about?
The same one that Harold's mentioned. It's just past where the telephone pole is laying on the ground, where LG&E left it. And that may be call 311 and see if they'll come get it. But it's just past that. The black fence is just before the Hunting Creek entrance, as you're driving up, just before you turn right.
All right. Now that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, he's had some. I don't know the owners personally, but yeah, being that all of us have driven by it, I have seen the fix and the be crushed and the fix and the be crushed. So I think he's trying to get rid of all those trees so nothing can fall on the fence. But hopefully somebody can check with him. I'm sure that would fall under Rick Wilson's criteria.
Response to the kind comments from Greg Hulsman about my having temporarily taken over the code enforcement, and that is that I learned one heck of a lot. I never drilled down into the details of what was required to grant these permits or not grant them and so forth. And I got to meet a lot of people to make sure this and that. It's a busy job, and it requires a good knowledge of what the code says. So it was a great education. I guess I should thank Mike. Anyway, we had another tree fall down that destroyed our salt barn. It's going to have to be completely rebuilt. The good news is that the insurance will almost entirely pay for it, all except for $1,000, which we can use out of the road aid fund. So there's that. Another item, the repairs to the entrance walls of the landings have now been completed. So that's done. And finally, in my report, the litigation over the Prospect Cove is awaiting a judge's decision on cross motions for summary judgment. I discussed that as well as the Viridian project in some detail in the newsletter, which should be coming out tomorrow. The only other thing in the LDG litigation to mention is that depositions will start being taken by the LDG attorneys on Thursday, I believe it is. And they will start with taking the all-day deposition of Scott Reed. The Viridian project, which is the one up next to the Marathon Station, that continues to move through the Metro Planning Commission, but it looks to me like it faces several obstacles, potentially where they're going to connect their sewers and whether they have an easement they can get in there, because it would go into Sutherland to connect, and that could be a problem. Also, there's its potential impact on nearby historic properties, and I go into that in some detail in the newsletter. The people who live up around there have gotten good advice from Mimi Runyon. She's really helped them. And they, through her, have located and hired a lawyer in Washington, D.C. who's expert in these things. And they've also hired a consultant. And the federal law doesn't allow this project to impact anything that's on the historic register or is entitled to be. So that's something else. And there's another piece of litigation that's about to begin against them, but I don't know any details about that. I want to get in touch one way or another with the lawyer handling that and get a copy of his complaint and see what's up. So that's what I know about that. That concludes my remarks. Are there any questions? If not, we'll go into the other committee reports. The first one goes to Mr. Embry on the Ethics Committee, or the Ethics Board.
Thanks, Mayor. Am I possible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Couple of, first of all, you few weeks ago, one of the commission members, MacArthur Darby, resigned. He is going to be leaving Prospect,
Unless they do
and
something different from what they've
he will
She's not
and
coming.
needs to live with a daughter up there who can take care of him. So he'll be leaving, and he has resigned. Currently, Gordon Cosley is an appointed member with me, and we now have a vacancy as a regular commission member. Dan Culbreth was appointed earlier this year as the alternate member of the commission. And I would recommend to the council that Dan move into the position of full council member. I would also ask the council to make an appointment for another the alternate member. Is that currently Dan Culbreth's term expires next year, mine the following year, and Gordon Cosley's expires in 2021, mine in 2022, and Dan in 2023. So I would recommend that the council make him a full commission member, and then it will at least keep our strength where it needs to be. The other comment I have, one, you're appointing some more members to, I think, code enforcement, or preparing to appoint some members to code enforcement. They will have to provide financial disclosure forms, as will Rick Wilson, the new code enforcement staff member. I ask that everybody carefully read that document, because I've seen a lot of errors, a lot of omissions really weren't necessary. For instance, on the second page, which is just general personal information, the residence is listed, and then they check in property owned, none, or not applicable. Their home also belongs in that, as does the employee of both spouses. And there are other things. Just read it carefully, make sure. I know it's kind of a long form, and it has to be done every year. For the new council members, you're going to have to do it again at the first of the year, as is everybody else. And I would also suggest that you the Prospect website and dig out Chapter 38, which is the ethics ordinance, and take a look at it. And if you need any of that, Laura can provide my phone number to you or my email, and I'll be happy to send it to you, talk to you about it, whatever needs to be. And that pretty much takes care of it, Mayor.
Don, how soon do we need to act on your suggestions?
I had to go digging in the ordinances and all of that, and I found that there isn't, for new appointed staff members, new committee or commission members, there isn't a time limit or requirement. We have, I think, always said within 30 days. My suggestion on that would be, since we're so close to the first of the year, and they're going to have to fill out a form then anyway, if no one objects, just let them fill it out after January 1st. And of course, the ordinance does require that forms for calendar 2021 are due by the first business day in March.
So would you please send me an email giving me the names and other information about the people that you suggest for these positions?
Oh, I don't have. I'm looking for suggestions in terms of
you were talking about Dan Culbreth.
Okay, yes, you're
So
correct.
We would need to do Dan Culbreth to name him, and it would have to come to the city council. So the
Right.
mayor has done a municipal order on code enforcement, and we would need to do one on this also.
Right.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
not for him to assume the vacancy in the interim. He's already an alternate.
No,
He's-
yes, to make him other than an alternate, we will
Right,
need to have
okay.
it go through.
But he can,
Correct.
if.
He can operate as an alternate until that happens.
Okay,
Is that your
John.
point?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if
I
there's
will
any,
send,
Then we need to name another alternate.
that's correct. I don't have a suggestion. I'm looking for suggestions. It's a council appointment, so in the past, Sandra and a couple of others have put forth names.
Okay, we can talk. There are people that you and I have talked about in the past, and you might
Okay.
consider them.
Okay, I'm certainly open. I just want somebody who's good with detail when we need it, which is not very often, thankfully.
Is that it, John?
That's all I've got, Mayor.
Any more questions for John? Okay, we'll move on to Parks and Recreation. Linda Bordella there? I don't see her on the screen.
Linda is not here. She said her written report was all that she had to contribute.
Okay, and does everybody does have that? I saw it on the table.
We have the report, yes.
Yes.
Okay, then shall we move on to the Forestation Board report? That's also a written report.
It is a written report. I do have a couple of updates for everyone. Good news in general. I talked about the tree planting was imminent. I heard this morning that the trees have been pulled and the new trees will be planted this Thursday. So that's something we all have to look forward to. So that's new trees. On our problem tree in Cowley Park, I heard from Lee last night that he had submitted a formal request to Ron for the removal of the hazardous oak tree. At the same time, he has also reached out to Arbor Works to get a quote on the potential cost to remove that. And
Linda,
then
would you mind describing what is hazardous about that tree in the opinion of the arborists?
we've got basically the same input, not only from our city arborist, Andrea, but we had the gentleman, Joe Clayton from Arbor Works come in, and it's a question of the tree has been damaged in the past from storms, and there's a considerable amount of rot within the tree, even though you do see it with leaves. And we had pictures that we sent to Ron to kind of help him, and we provided, I think, to most of the council members in the past, and we can send them again, that it's like the inside is falling apart. You just can't see it. And because of that, it's not stable. And so there's no guarantee when it could go, but it's a big tree. And that park is used by a lot of people to walk their dogs, just to get out. There's a lot of traffic that goes through there. They just felt it was something that should be addressed sooner rather than later.
Does the council have any questions about any of that to Linda?
I mean, I know it's very disappointing. We hate to lose a tree. We looked into, can we save part of the tree and move forward? Again, we were told twice, no, unfortunately.
All right. Okay, is that it, Linda?
Yes, if you have questions.
Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on down to the library and the history book for Sandra.
In regard to the library, the volunteers who have been keeping the library open during this COVID crisis met and talked about whether or not we could realistically have a used book sale during the pandemic. During the upswing in cases, we don't think that makes sense. But when the cases level off, We have worked on some processes and procedures which would meet the requirements. In fact, they go beyond the requirements. And we do think that we can hold realistically a used book sale. We had tentatively scheduled it for January with the thought that we might do it in February if January is not practical. And we can do it in March if February is not practical, because we've worked not just on social distancing, but we've talked about a lot of other things that we can do that will limit the number of people up there and that will keep things clean. So at some point in time, when the COVID has subsided a little bit, we will be talking about having a used book sale. In regard to the history book, this pandemic has just about decimated the ability to move forward on the history book. I'm still working on it, but the things that I'm doing are not what we were doing before we ended up being quarantined and socially distanced, because as I've said many times before, there isn't anybody who's written this. And so an awful lot of what we do causes us to have to interact with people and not within our normal family group. We have gone to many, although not quite all, of the historical repositories within the state of Kentucky, and we have done a very large number of interviews, but we still have more to do in that regard. And so when the pandemic allows us to go back to it, we'll get back to the more active component of what we've been working on.
Good. It sounds to me, I don't know about you all, it sounds to me like we're getting closer to having a vaccine that at least us old people can get. So that would be very helpful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, thank you, Sandra. Any questions for Sandra?
I think Sandra and her library team have done a great job keeping that library accessible during the pandemic, and the need for books is higher. You guys have just done a great job with that.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the police report.
Okay, well, you get me twice tonight, so you can either look at that as the curse of 2020 continues, or Christmas came early this year. There's not a whole lot to report in terms of the usual with the house checks and everything. They're about the same. Citations up a little bit. We had a few more non-injury accidents this month compared to same time last year. Not a whole lot significant. Dispatch runs were up a little bit. Not a whole lot. Officer initiated runs up a little bit. The burglar alarms were up double, but all of them were false, which is what we like to see. The arrests, we had a few. The DUI arrest that we had was not a standard one. It was a case where they had a refusal where they have to draw blood. So we don't immediately get the BA results where you find out whether or not somebody blew a .15 or whatever. They have to send off for they just draw their blood there at the jail. So actually, I don't have the results back on those. It's one of those things that you're curious. It takes a while to get them back. One of the other arrests was was a domestic violence case, unusual in the fact that it was a son who assaulted his mother. Those are sort of unusual, really. Another case we had that was a drug possession case that originated out of a traffic stop. And what made that one unusual is when the officer was, she was actually handling everything the way that you would want with gloves and everything. She actually had an exposure to methamphetamine and had to be taken to the hospital themselves. Again, that's an unusual thing. Had an elevated heart rate, things like that. So anyway, took them to the emergency room and they checked them out, and they were released, an hour or so later once they determined everything was okay, but had the tingling in their fingers and everything. Even though they handled everything with gloves and a mask and everything, still had an exposure from something that got airborne just from looking in a purse. So that's how dangerous that stuff could be.
Was this one of our officers?
Yeah, it was Haverland. I guess she wouldn't care if I told you who it was. It was Marion Haverland on late watch. It was in the course of an arrest. The person had methamphetamine and a few other things in the purse. And all she did was just open the purse, because the person had already been placed under arrest for having a warrant on them. And then so search subsequent to arrest found drugs in her purse, and just merely the act of opening her purse with gloves and a mask on, she had a slight exposure. And then as she was actually dropping this person off at the jail, had numbness in her fingers and a tingling on her head. And so immediately went to the emergency room, and ironically they said, well, you've had an exposure to methamphetamine. But fortunately, because she was wearing all the protective gear, it was a very minor exposure. And then they just monitored her for an hour or so. Her vitals were good, and she was released and has had no ill effects from that exposure. So, but that was just an unusual occurrence. The reports for the month, we had the one felony case was a theft from an auto. Someone had their car parked over at the horse farm, and while they were out on a horse, somebody entered the car and took the purse out, had cash and credit cards in it, immediately started using the cards. And then we had 3 misdemeanor cases where unlocked vehicles were entered, various parts, no rhyme or reason, no specific area, just 3 different locations. And then one that was a little bit unusual, we took it as a call response. When we take a report as a call response, it's not that we're specifically listing it as a crime report, but we're taking a report to merely document an incident that occurred that is sort of unusual. But we had a resident who had a property listed for sale on like a Facebook marketplace or whatever, which is an unusual way to sell a property. But someone took that property for sale and attempted to rent it out to someone else. Which, but anyway, but that property was over in Indiana. So, but as it turned out, nobody actually got to rent the property, but we were just sort of documenting the fact that that happened. But that was a little bit on the unusual side for us. That's about all I have to do with the reports. Another thing I wanted to tell you about Rick Wilson that you'll probably get a kick out of, when he was reading through the sign ordinances or whatever, he was sort of intrigued by the sign ordinance. So he goes, I think I can really sink my teeth into this one. So you'll get a kick out of that. He's probably the only guy in the city of Prospect that likes reading the sign ordinance. I, for one, it gives me a headache. So I wouldn't read it on a bet. I wouldn't read it on a bet.
Greg and I have read it a dozen times. And it's pretty tough.
So apparently we got to send him for a mental evaluation. Okay, I'm finished.
Chief,
if anybody has any questions. Yes, sir.
Chief, this is Greg. Couple of comments. First of all, I got to say this. It dawns on me every month, but I've never said anything about it before like this, and that is that month after month, we hear great reports of how well we're doing in Prospect, and we certainly are blessed. And sure, a lot of that might have to do with we just have a good area with good people, but certainly a lot of that has to do with the fine police department. And I know I speak for all of us. Would you please pass along to everyone in the police department, and of course yourself, thank you. Thank you for the great job that you do in thwarting crime in our community and doing such a great job of responding. I wanted to say that. And then the second thing I want to say is for the last couple of HOA forums, these are the mayor's HOA, actually the HOA and business forums, but mostly they've been attended by the HOA leadership. At the last 2, the subject of surveillance has been on the agenda. And I just want to pass along that Sutherland, well, 2 things about Sutherland. They have, I think they've already installed them. I think they went in last Friday. I could be wrong on that. If they haven't put them in yet, they are soon to go in, surveillance cameras in the Sutherland area. And then the other thing, and frankly, to be honest, this is kind of to my surprise, Sutherland, with help from you, Chief, put stop signs in, additional stop signs in the Sutherland neighborhood. And I was sort of opposed to that because I didn't think they were needed, but I can tell you that I like them, and I can tell a big, big difference. People are much slower. And it's not just so much the residents. I don't think that was the main culprit anyway, but the companies that are in, the delivery people, the service people, and that sort of thing, they are slowing down too. And so it's very good. I think the stop signs were a good decision. So I just want to say that, and I know you have a lot to do with that too. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for the comments on the police department. I appreciate that. We have a great staff to work for. Believe me, it's really easy to come to work every day when you've got all these people that we have to work with. They're just wonderful people. Secondly, the stop signs, I agree with you. At first, I was a little bit hesitant. I wondered how that would work out, but after driving through there a number of times, it took a little bit of getting used to, but it really flows pretty well, much better than I thought it would. And I sort of like it. I think it breaks up that circle pretty well, and that they're nice and evenly spaced. And I think it makes a comfortable ride. I don't think it chops it up too bad. And just going over there and sitting at times, I think people are obeying the stop signs pretty well. You know, the first week or so, it was a little rough. Particularly the one over there by your place. I think that's the hardest one to see. And but now it seems pretty natural. And then thirdly, regarding the surveillance camera, I was not aware of that. Is that who's monitoring that? Is that Steve and company? Are they the ones actually monitoring that?
I think so. I don't really know. We'll get back to you on that.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Jeff, thanks again for handling the Rick Wilson situation.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thanks.
Next item on the agenda under new business is a report from Chris Gorman on the telecom franchise. Chris, we can't hear you. Chris?
Chris, you're still muted according to my system.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm an operator. I'm a lawyer coming with good news. This is going to be like finding $2,000 on the street. You'll recall in September, I asked you to pass a municipal ordinance. Background noise. In September, I keep getting it. At any rate, I'll pass that echo. Ron, can you do anything about that echo? In September, I asked you all to pass a municipal ordinance thank you, that helped, that solved it. A municipal ordinance which allowed us to collect the cable franchise fee, which was, and you need to think this in terms of the insurance premium tax, so you'll understand it. We passed it and we asked for 5% in a municipal order. And Laura said, how can we do 5% when our ordinance only says we can receive 3%? So I did some research into that. And again, this is good news. What we found is right now, and they have been collecting for some time under their master agreement with the county, which we mimic with our agreement, they've been collecting 5%. It's like the insurance premium tax. If we don't ask for it, we don't get it. The money goes to the state and or the county. we not only can get the 3%, we can get the entire 5%, and it will not increase the tax for the taxpayer 1 penny. Not going to increase taxes at all. In order to do that, we'll need some language that will change the ordinance. I don't have anything to present to you tonight. There is some language that needs to be prepared by the attorneys for Spectrum. I've talked to Ellen Call, who's been tremendous on this, and she said, look, we don't have a dog in this fight. We don't care. If Prospect wants to collect it 100%, that's fine with us. We'll be glad to work with you. We'll be glad to prepare the documentation that we insist upon. They will probably ask you to extend the ordinance. It was a 20-year ordinance. They'll probably ask you to extend that another 2 to 3 years. But if you do that, then you'll get the entire 5% instead of 3%. You were going to receive an additional $17,000 by doing it this way. But doing it this way, you'll receive probably an additional $37,000 to $40,000. So I think it's something that you should do. I don't have anything to present tonight, but I will have the exact wording on the docket in the form of a municipal order with the language that Spectrum is going to present to us at the December meeting. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do, Chris. So I understand you're going to come back to us, and I get everything you said. Couple of things, though. They only want to extend it 2 to 3 years. That's all?
Well, 2 or 3 years from the time right now, you passed it in 2007. And you passed it for a 20-year franchise. In Kentucky, franchises cannot extend more than 20 years. So what they would probably ask you to do is do it today for another 20 years, which would be extending it from about 16 and a half years to 20 years. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, I see. And that can be in that same ordinance change. We can do all that at one time, correct?
Yeah, we do it all at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to try to get it in effect as of January 1st. That's our goal. Ellen said that would be no problem. We can get that done. And again, it's either a question of giving the money to the state or us receiving the money. There's no increase in taxes at all.
Chris, this is Frank. You're doing a terrific job on that. That's, like you said, found money.
Oh, thank you.
You mentioned municipal order, and earlier it was I think you said, Laura said that the ordinance had the 3%. Are we dealing with an ordinance or a municipal order?
Well, we're dealing with just municipal order. That's what I talked with another attorney, John Singler, who some of you know, and he has about 20 cities that have done it this way. There are some cities like Jeffersontown that have kept it at 3%, but I'm with John. I think we ought to receive the 5%. And we're doing it by municipal order so that it's just cleaner that way, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's great work.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the municipal order 5-2020 regarding the nominations for the Code Enforcement Board. And at this point, I would open the nominations and any questions about any of it for discussion.
John, I only have one. Did we check the box for residency?
Well, I have personally checked with Dennis Riggs and Paul McDaniel, who were the two people that I came up with independently of the council's suggestions. So yes, I have vetted those two. And I would ask I guess Sandra to speak to the vetting of the other nominees who were ones that she and Randy put forward on that point.
Yes, we did check with all of them to find out both that they're residents of Prospect and that they have been for more than 1 year.
Good.
Okay, that box is checked then.
I think so. Any other discussion?
Just a request, and that is that we take each person individually. Out of respect for them, I think that we should do that routinely when we put people on boards, commissions, or committees.
Okay. Let's do it that way then. The first name on here for a 3-year term is Al Binsfield. You want to do a roll call vote or you want to just say aye?
We can do either.
All right, well, the ayes are simpler. If there's no objection to that, all in favor of Al, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next name put up for a 3-year term is Randy Swan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we have 2 people put up for 2-year terms. First is Dennis Riggs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Dennis Riggs makes it. Second name is Lynn Dowling. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And for a term of 1 year is John Clark. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then to serve as the alternate for a term of 3 years is Paul McDaniel. All in favor of Paul, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that. And let's see where we are. Is there any unfinished business to be brought up tonight?
John, could I have the floor for just a minute to go back to some new business?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we need not do anything as far as Sarah Liddell is concerned that haven't already been taken care of, but I know I speak for all of us in just wanting to, since this is her first meeting, welcome Sarah to the council. Sarah, welcome. And then also congratulating Doug on his election. So I want to congratulate Doug Parsley.
Well,
And then,
excuse me. I'm glad you brought that up because I have a concern, and it may not be well founded, but on the side of caution, I'm going to mention it. The motion that was made at the special meeting was to appoint that candidate who was certified to get the most votes. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been any certification at this point. And I don't
No,
know.
we did. They are certified, and it was Sarah Odell.
How'd you find that out? I'm curious.
I get the emails. I'm sure some of the others here do too. In fact, Greg also indicated that the certification had taken place.
Okay. Well, my only question then is, would you be more comfortable if you appointed Sarah by name?
Yes, and has she been sworn in?
No.
Then she should not be recorded as voting during this meeting.
Well, she won't be. I'll swear her in. I can swear her in tonight over WebEx. In fact, I can do that. If you want me to, I can do that right now.
You can do that.
Go ahead.
that's good.
Do we need to nominate Sarah and vote her in real quick for the council, just to verify that and then swear her in?
I didn't hear you,
Could do
Harold.
that.
If so, I'd like to nominate Sarah Odell to fill the vacancies the rest of the year.
Second.
Second.
There we go.
Frank seconded.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that Sarah Odell be named as the successor to the seat that had been vacated by Randy Swan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Frank, how do you vote?
Yes.
I can't see who's next to you. I think it's Don Gibson.
Yes.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and then I think that's Harold next to you.
Yes.
My picture isn't real, it's very tiny. Sandra Leonard,
Yes.
Hulsman.
Yes.
I don't think I've missed anyone because there were only 5. If Frank voted. Yeah, well, congratulations, Sarah. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to raise your right hand, I will swear you in.
Okay.
Sarah,
Yes.
repeat after me. I, Sarah Odell,
I, Sarah Odell,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky,
as long as I continue to be a citizen thereof,
as long as I continue to be a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability
and that I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability
the office of City Council Member for the City of Prospect, Kentucky,
the office of City Council Member for the City of Prospect, Kentucky,
according to law.
according to law.
And I do further solemnly swear,
And I do further solemnly swear,
since the adoption of the present Constitution,
since the adoption of the present Constitution,
by being a citizen of this state,
by being a citizen of this state,
have not fought a duel with deadly weapons,
have not fought a duel with deadly weapons,
nor have I acted as a second in carrying a challenge,
nor have I acted as a second in carrying a challenge,
or aided and assisted any person thus offending, so help me God.
or aided or assisted any person offending me, so help me God.
Thus offending, so help me God.
Thus offending, so help me God. Sorry, we're having audio problems.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And John, I think I have one more item I'd like to bring forth to the council. It's just an FYI. At the August meeting, it was Frank who rightfully brought up the question about lighting. And are we getting our money's worth, making sure that the invoices are correct and so on and so forth. And I volunteered to take that on. And it took us a while to get to just the right person at LG&E. But we have now done that. That happened last week. His name is, I like his name, Henry Ford Jr. is his name. And he's a great guy. He's been working with us very closely. And so Ron and I, the first step is to take a look at what we think are 5 meters in the city of Prospect. We can't find any power going through there for any purpose. So we're going to be very, very careful about this. And that's just the first step. That's we're going to take this as the low-lying fruit first. The steps after that will be to get into the counting of the street lights, and that could actually take months. But going back to the meters, Ron and I are going to meet about that in about a week. We'll physically go to the meters, and we've already checked with Mr. Ford, and he said, even if we make a mistake and turn it off, they can turn it back on. So if any of you all lose power in the next few weeks, you can call me up. I'm just kidding. We're going to be real sure. We already are real sure that there's no power going through that, but we'll take all the necessary steps to make sure. Right now, we are paying $30-some-odd each month for those. So if it is true, there'll be a savings there, and we're going to go on for it. Our next step after the meters is to look at the lighting. And again, that could take well into the first quarter, but I'll keep you posted. So I just wanted you all to know where we're still on that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Greg? All right, anything else? Any comments from citizens?
I did have one thing to, I did have one thing to relay from a couple of my neighbors. Harold, sorry, I interrupted you. Was there anybody there to speak?
No.
It is, it reminds me, I did have the pleasure to speak to the chief earlier today, just to ask him about, some of the things somebody had brought up about the corner of Foxcroft Road and Hunting Creek Drive, and residents coming from Foxcroft Road coming up to turn left onto Hunting Creek Drive to head out to the front of the neighborhood, and how people coming from Valley Park, that sort of area, Deep Creek Drive, they go down a large hill first, blindly can't see Foxcroft Road. You know, they come up the hill, they gain a little speed, then they come up the hill. And if you're in Foxcroft Road and you try to pull out on a Hunting Creek Drive, you have like milliseconds to see the top of a car, but your car is already coming out, and if they're doing anything over 25, it is a nail biter for a moment. So a couple people did ask me once they saw me on the street, hey, you're on the council, guess what I've got a thing for you. And so that was something that the chief had mentioned, that those stop signs had gone in Wyndham, and that he, you know, people thought, I don't know if that'll go over well, but it did have really good success. And he said he hasn't gotten any complaints. And chief, feel free to jump in if I'm missing your mark here. But that obviously that would fall to us as the council. But I don't know if the next little bit when you guys drive around, if you do happen to have a minute to come take a drive from Cali Park, going down Hunting Creek Drive and then up past Foxcroft Road, and just kind of take a peek, and then maybe turn down Foxcroft and come up Foxcroft to take a left, and just look to your right and kind of see what you can or cannot see. And then maybe we could chat about it and see what we think could do. The chief was not opposed to putting something there, but obviously it's our call as the council. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there and see what your all's thoughts were, if you had them right now, or just maybe over the next month when you drive it, to kind of take a peek and see.
Is there vegetation or something, or what? I don't understand the issue.
Oh yeah, no, it's so, there used to be a vegetation problem, viewing cars from the left as they were coming towards you, towards Cali Park. That has actually been taken care of. The problem is actually a road structure problem. So it's cars are below the line of sight going down a hill, and then they come up the hill with sometimes what appears to be a decent amount of speed. And so when you go to turn left off of Foxcroft Road on a Hunting Creek Drive, they are coming from this way, but no one can see them until the top of their car is there. And at that point, you're probably 3 car lengths away. So you turn out of Foxcroft Road and poof, there's somebody going 35 plus that instantly shows up. So no, it's not a vegetation. It would truly have to be solved via either one of the longer speed humps. I know there's a difference between bump and hump, but one of the, you know, they slow down a little bit, but let's not bottom anybody's car out scenario, or a stop sign.
Sarah, I drove the intersection 3 times today, turning left out of Foxcroft.
Yeah.
100%. Yes, the vegetation's taken care of, and especially during the fall and stuff, it's not as bad. But I almost been hit coming out there too, and I drive that very rarely. So I agree with you 100%. We can have our milestone group look at it and see if a stop sign would be feasible. I don't think anybody's for speed bumps.
No. Yeah.
I'm definitely not, or a hump, or whatever you want to call it. A stop sign might be feasible, and that might be the only option.
Actually, we're going to have a meeting of one more meeting of our paving group anyway. And now that you brought it up, certainly we'll invite you to come and talk to Milestone so that they know what the issue is.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay, perfect.
Any other comments? All right, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Was there a first?
Frank Fulcher was first.
Okay, quick on the draw. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh, my mic was off the whole time.
We hear you.
Good to see you, Doug. Welcome, Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. Good to see you, Doug.
Good to see y'all.
All right, we'll see you, Chris. Bye. Thanks.
See you.